will actually, good morning. I hope some of you will turn your camera on just so I can put a face with some of the names this morning. I really want us to be a bit conversational and directional of where this committee and work we can do together can go. Shannon, will you keep an eye on the weight room?
Yep.
Me too.
Mhm.
Thank you. I will screen share something you should have received a few minutes ago from me, a draft of an agenda this morning. I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Mhm.
Nice. Right. So this is only going to be as beneficial today if you engage and communicate and chat with us and tell us all the things you need and some direction that we can focus on. I wanted to spend a few minutes at the beginning, though, to at least update you on some things that are on our radar and that we want to make sure you participate and join for because they have come from board discussions or past ideas from folks on this call. One being the June 6th date. If you were at an area meeting, you heard Shannon and myself and our board plugging this one pretty hard. June 6th, I hope you'll get a pen and write it down on your calendar and plan to join us. It's Friday, June 6th at Randolph-Macon. One of the strategic plan goals was to ensure we were holding some in-person trainings in addition to virtual efforts. So this came together also because on the evening of June 6th, our Youth Conservation Leadership Institute students are doing their science fair presentations and their banquet graduation, and we have traditionally held it at Randolph-Macon, had a professor speak. It's been a really great banquet program. We would love to try to encourage folks to attend this from districts. Certainly, it's been a lot of attendance from participants and parents and some of our leadership board, but would love to make that broader so that districts themselves can see what's happening along Youth Leadership Institute kids. That's 4:30 to 7 p.m. on Friday, June 6th. Since we are paying for the room rental all day, our leadership team asked us to capitalize on that and develop a training. So starting at 9:30 on Friday, June 6th at Randolph-Macon, I've put on the agenda at least so you can see a little bit of a draft agenda template of what we're thinking, but welcome for feedback and input before you see a registration go live in the next few days from Shannon. So 9:30, we do some introductions, kickoff, icebreaker, right? Unfortunately, sometimes Zoom isn't great at us being able to network and get to know each other and cameras and popcorning around. So we're going to try to take a few minutes, definitely that morning, to capitalize on being together in person and get to know each other. And then at 10 o'clock, we will have Sarah Adams, Blair Gordon, and Christine Watlington Jones. DCR has been really great to work with, has ensured we can get Sarah Adams, a CPA, to provide us a session from around 10 to 11:30 on audit lessons. Many of you had an audit this past year and some of the lessons learned, those tips and tricks, maybe how we can ensure we don't have boo-boos moving forward, I think is how they framed it for me, just to really improve our business practices. So Sarah, and then rounding out Sarah, we've drafted a budget template overview and have asked Blair Gordon to provide a big picture understanding of what budget template is, talk about maybe some of those things that are often pitfalls for us when we try to fill it out. And then by June 6th, since it has already been released, we really hope that you have spent some time actually trying to input your own data and come with Q&A so that we can walk through what those issues you might be having are. Remember, needs to be board approved, so you should be at a point where you've tried to start working on it and take it to your board meeting. And this is a great place with peers and DCR leadership to talk about budget template. Likewise, we'll give you an overview of what the process really means. Many of you might not realize that the budget template plays such a good role in our legislative agenda development, those rolled up numbers we look at, how the Soil and Water Board uses them, how they would be using them in the spring next year. So all things budget template from around 11:30 to 12:15. Some of you have met and know that we now have two representatives in the Office of the Attorney General working for districts, and both of them are planning to join us on June 6th and provide a little bit of here are some of the things we've heard of late from districts that might be helpful guidance, just so that we can all be on the same page. And then they'd be joining us for lunch and networking. So you can reach out to Jesse or Daryl and you would be able to meet them in person here too. We'd have a lunch together, and then from 1 to 3, we have a grant writing and resource development speaker who would spend the afternoon focusing on where to find grants, how to ensure your message is compelling, those documents you need to have ready for any grant you'd apply for, some budget questions, things like that. And then we'd wrap up around 3:15, so that we could shift and get ready for our Leadership Institute effort in the afternoon. Shannon is working on registration on our website already. You can, let's see if I can pull up our website for you. Thank you. I see a few of you have turned your cameras on. I appreciate it. It's good to see some faces. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Linda. I'm going to see on our website if I can pull up so you would know where to look. I mean, we'll certainly send out an all district and plug it multiple times, but share my screen. Here we go. On our website, you should be able to find under SWCB resources, director admin trainings. I mean, that training resource library is any of the recordings that we've done in the last few years, but here you'll start to see that draft agenda that I started talking about. Registration is $40 for registration. That registration deadline might change, Shannon. It depends on what you need to be able to meet deadlines for Randolph-Macon. But this is the place I want you to come to find the details and where Shannon will be posting registration links. Shannon, anything I'm missing about June 6th?
I don't think so. No.
Right. We have not opened a room block.
I don't know if we want.
Right. $40. That's definite. We've tried to keep the cost low. And it's being supported by our foundation. And there's a link here also to not only the driving directions and accommodations near campus. We don't have a room block per se, but there are a lot of hotels right around campus if you needed them, if you weren't coming in for the day itself. I'm going to stop there and see what questions you might have about June 6th or what you want to ensure June 6th looks like. What are some of the questions and conversation, if you're coming to that training, you would want to ensure you see? I'll wait, right? I told you I don't want to be the only one to talk today. So, right, who might be coming on June 6th? It's fitting for directors or staff. And what would you want to get out of it? Anything in this agenda that needs to be shifted?
Kendall, it's Linda Dunn.
Mhm.
Good morning, everyone. We are going to be having an audit this fall. And so I am interested to find out what other districts have found or what the auditors found at other districts that we should be prepared for. I know that a couple years ago when we were audited for, I think, 22 and 23, a lot of the districts, it was an issue with taxes. If we visited the same store 3 times or more than 3 times, we were not supposed to be taxed on goods, services, or whatever. So I just wondered if that was something that was found again for those that have already been audited.
Well, I think that's great. I'm going to put Blair, I think she's on the line on the spot because I know she's really helping pull this together. And that sales tax one is one absolutely still in place. And Blair, you might be able to speak if we still ran into it. I believe one district did.
Yeah, we did once or twice run into it actually again this year. And the state board has kind of set the precedence that anytime sales tax is found on purchases that are, you have that are above and beyond kind of the liberties that the attachment, no, let me try this again, that the desktop procedures, that's the word I'm looking for, allows, there's kind of a standard fee or fine of $250. So pay attention to what is stated in the desktop procedures about sales tax. You should be getting an exemption for sales tax if you're spending over $100, or if, especially at stores that you frequent for supplies for your office or something like that too. There is some difference between like hotel tax and meals tax. Those are things that are often out of the control and not considered. They're considered kind of separate from state sales tax. So do keep that in mind as you're booking like hotel rooms for annual meeting, or if you're having a special dinner out with your board or something. Not all restaurants, you should try your best, but not all restaurants are willing to waive like a sales tax, or if your locality implements like a higher meals tax, like that's not considered like the waivable state tax. I guess a question I get all the time. But Linda, do pay attention. There's a general management letter that went out from the State Soil and Water Board, along with the general management letter from Robinson, Farmer, and Cox. It went out to all admins, treasurers, and chairs, and district managers. And it has a nice overview of kind of some of the common themes we found during the audits, and that is stuff that we ask all districts to look at and make sure that their policies and procedures are aligning with some of those findings that were commonly found in this last
Yeah,
round.
I did see that. I did see that.
Right. I appreciate the feedback, Linda. I think certainly dive into some of those. Keith, thank you for coming on camera. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yep. Couple things. I know, Linda, we have issues with, say, some of our local grocery store, small vendors. I'm gonna say, like, we'll go buy stuff from Dollar General or something or another, and every time we have to go in there and take in a sales tax exempt form, and they don't know what to do with it. So, one of the things we've done is just say, hey, put it on your own account, come in, submit a travel reimbursement form, right, wrong, indifferent. Instead of spending 30 minutes to pick up a pack of batteries worth $5, we just do a reimbursement through individuals along those lines.
For individual employees. Yeah, you can do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, to spend an extra 30 minutes to buy $5 worth of batteries or $10 worth of batteries is crazy. I mean, I understand the intent of that, but that's a workaround, I guess you say, that we've done a lot of times.
Yeah, and depending on where you live too, like I've had some people say, well, we're just not going to shop at X, Y, and Z store anymore because we couldn't get sales tax exempt. So instead of going to the Dollar General, we're going to drive the extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes to the Walmart. Now, of course, if you live where I live, it's an extra
That's
half
30
hour to the
minutes.
Walmart.
So it's an
Yeah.
hour round trip to save
extra 30
$5. I
minutes
just
to the
spent more
Walmart.
money in gas than I did.
Yeah. But we have had people kind of say they're going to change stores or they're going to change vendors or something based on that. And, we're not trying to be super inconvenient. I hate that for everybody, but we are not supposed to be, you are sales tax exempt by code. So we should be getting sales tax exemptions
And
whenever
then,
possible.
Blair, I guess the other thing that would be helpful, right, wrong, indifferent, if districts that are going to be audited this fall, if they get the list of what the auditor's looking for more than 2 weeks in advance, it helps out tremendously. I know we had to
the list you're supposed to, okay, yeah.
Yeah, last year we kept
list.
begging the auditors for that list, and I mean begging, and we finally got it about 2 weeks in advance. And
Okay.
I don't see if I'm being audited in October, what's the difference? And I'm one of the first districts. What's wrong with sharing that information to the other districts, just helping them and prepare for it?
Yeah. We can certainly get that sent out ahead of time.
And work and advocate for that too. That's a good one, Keith. I see some comments in the chat box if Sharon or Susie wanted to talk up about theirs or right.
Yeah, Sharon, dealing with change in liabilities and accounts receivable, sales tax, etc. Those are topics for Sarah Adams to cover. Those are a big one. That was one of those recurring issues we found in the audits again, especially the change in liabilities. And that could be from payroll liabilities or a number of different things, and sales tax and stuff like that. Those are all topics that are high on the priority list for Sarah to discuss at the June 6th training.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. And Susie's right. Some of you attended with us the Soil and Water Board meeting last week. One of the other items that came up a few times was verifying those account balances with State Treasury Department. So keeping that on your radar. Any questions around that one? Okay. any other general comments? Like, this is not your only opportunity to do so, but at least at this point of what you want to see out of June 6th, or topics, issues addressed as Shannon and I work to try to pull this one together. I'm really excited to hopefully see a number of you in person that day. It has been great to connect at area meetings, but certainly having the space for us to come together and train and learn is going to be really valuable. Terry, is the state treasury open to update? I don't know if Terry, you have a mic. Sometimes you don't. If you wanted to.
I haven't seen the email come through yet.
Okay.
For this quarter. I feel like it is.
I
feel like it
actually
is
checked yet.
open. Trying to
This
remember what
is Susie. I remember last quarter it opened up like a month after the quarter ended.
yeah.
So it's probably getting ready to open up.
Yeah.
Got it. Right. And we can keep an eye on that one too, just to make sure it doesn't fall off the radar. Sharon, I see your hand up.
Yes, on that Friday, the 6th, do we bring our computers with QuickBooks so that we can walk through these things with Sarah? Because me watching a screen versus, and somebody else doing it versus me actually working through something it's, for me, that's the difference between night and day. So is this like a working thing, or is this just a follow the PowerPoint and she talks about it?
Blair, I'll let you just take a bit of lead on that, because I know you were working with Sarah specifically to help frame that hour-and-a-half time frame. I had understood it was going to be more larger picture audit, feedback, and review, and her working through it. But Sharon, to your point, I think if not for that session, having your laptop to pull up your own budget template would be really helpful to show others, ask questions, and be a working session. But Blair,
If we have time through the Sarah Adams session to dive into something a little deeper, we can take the time to do that. Initially, it will be kind of a larger picture. This is how change in liabilities is supposed to work from a larger scale so that everybody can kind of implement it. But if we have some time at the end of our session, because I think we've got a little bit of extra time built in there, we can get into some more specifics. So it's not a bad idea to bring it, just if there's time.
okay. And Christine, thank you. I know I see in the chat box, they checked yesterday. It won't be open until May 1st, and there's some additional detail. How does DCR use profit and loss for attachment E would be helpful to know. Or maybe we can work on that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, I'm making sure I'm taking notes too to ensure we try to do our best for you for this session with topics. Okay. So that's a little bit of an overview of how we needed feedback and your thoughts as we start planning that June 6th training. Like I said, Shannon will have a registration link out in the next few days, and look for it on the website and via all district. But if you have a burning topic or something that you think we really need to make sure we address in person, it hasn't passed, by all means reach out to Shannon or myself and we'll make sure we incorporate it where we can. I would say, in addition to June 6th, there have been, as many of you know, the HR support. I will caveat it like I always have. The $30,000 contract the foundation has entered into with Gallagher Consulting on behalf of districts is not the answer to all of your HR issues, and I certainly am aware of it, but hopefully it is providing a foundation and a starting point for us. There was a virtual training in the fall and one we did last month that are recorded and on our website. The one she did last month was about taking your employee teams to the next level. The retainer hours have opened since then, though. So we have a bank of retainer hours for each district currently to use 1 hour with Gallagher through the end of August. You do not have to use it in the full hour increment. If you had a burning question and it only takes 12 minutes for you to talk with Charlotte and figure it out, by all means, pick up the phone and call her and get some of your questions answered. She will be tracking how much time you've used, who her point of contact that called and asked the question, as well as for us, generally. I do not want to know your in-depth personnel questions that you might be asking. It is intended for you to be able to get in the weeds of any of your own district personnel issues, but she's keeping enough of a tracking record that she can reach back out to Shannon and say, I've heard from 3 districts who are asking me questions about FMLA. We need to do some type of training or discussion around that so that not every district is utilizing their time on that. So big picture is what she's doing for us. We will likely have her, if there is interest, in a water cooler chat. But I say that in a way that I don't want to have her here for 1 hour and us pay for it without any structure and us just sit quietly without asking her questions. So I'm happy to do that if you come promise me that in a group forum like this for a water cooler, you would be willing and wanting to ask general questions that you can use in that time period and then still keep your hour specific to your district needs. Is that something of interest? Yes. Nobody's saying yes or no. Okay. Thank you, Keith. All right, so we will move forward with that idea. It would be a Zoom registration link. Thank you guys for dropping it in the chat books and just reassuring me that might be something that would be of value. Shannon, do you want to talk a little bit about how the contact information works, what you need, how many have responded to you, and answer a little bit of Linda Dunn's question?
Contact. Yes, so I can send out her contact information, her email, and her phone. I have heard from 24 districts out of 47 who have let me know who their point of contact at the district is. So I will reiterate this once again. We are requesting that you register, and there is a Google form. And if you haven't received that or you cannot find the link, let me know. Just shoot me something in the chat box if you want, and I'll write down. I can send you the link. We are requesting that you register who your point of contact is so that we can ensure that everyone or at the district between the board and the staff are communicating, and we don't have, say, a director or a staffer call Charlotte and ask either a personal question or a question that really hasn't been discussed, and then you use up your hour, and then someone else calls to ask a question and there's not an hour left. So we just want to ensure that you guys are communicating and that you have a designated individual that is the individual that talks to Charlotte. And that's what that link is for, is to the form to designate who that person is. Now, that doesn't mean that, say, the chairman needs to have a discussion with Charlotte and the district manager, say, is the point of contact. That district manager can also send an email to Charlotte and let her know that, we have a situation and our director, Joe Smith, is going to be contacting you about a question. So please make sure Charlotte will not have a discussion with you if she cannot verify that you are the point of contact. So if you can just let me know if you still need that link, and I will send it out to you.
Do you want to answer Sharon's?
Can we go ahead and use your? Yep, absolutely. The hours are out there. They're open. They're ready to go. So.
And you do not need to let us know.
No.
Right? Shannon can follow up and send you the contact information for Charlotte again. We can probably drop it in the chat box before the end of the session, right? You go straight to Charlotte and talk to her about, how you want to use the hour, the questions that you might have. I know some of you have already started using those. By all means, keep at it. Get your own district needs met. And our intent is that everybody has some equity in terms of 1 hour between now and the end of August. And once end of August hits us, if there is a pool of hours still left that districts didn't tap into, if you didn't use your hour or the entirety of your hour, then it would be on a first come, first served basis for you to be able to talk with Charlotte on any of your issues. But wanted to at least let every district have an opportunity through August to speak about any issue. Okay. Yes, but please don't make us the middleman. We don't want to be the middleman for your personnel issues. We want to try to find that safe space for you to talk with an outside consultant and expert. Okay. Got it. No problem, Linda. We'll make sure Charlotte's contact information gets in the chat box in a bit, and we'll make sure when we follow up via email, we include Charlotte's contact information to folks too.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, so I can't see, so just in case there's a question or something. Okay.
Sure.
Well, I'm trying to get her.
Let's talk about, unless there's other HR questions, has anybody used their hour? Have started tap? I know some of you have actually, just because of Ask Charlotte, but anything that you want to talk about in terms of retainer hours or anything we can do differently that would better serve you?
I don't want to take over the whole hour and a half, but I have a question on Section 125 plans. We have 2 employees that are enrolled in Kaiser, and currently we're set up. It's not, I don't know if it's a Section 125 plan, but the previous admin, Jeannie Heflin, she did not charge employees. The deductions were made before taxes. So I've continued to do that. But I don't know if a Section 125 plan needs to be updated. I haven't been able to locate it in our files. So I need information on how to find out where to get the Section 125 or find out if it's ever been done.
I'm not a legal expert or know much on 125 plans, so I'm sorry I can't help you on that one, but we can certainly, if there is a district who does that and wants to speak up and make the connection, otherwise you're right, we can connect with Charlotte and make sure you get some answers too when you reach out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's screen share this agenda. I appreciate the feedback. We try hard to do and support y'all, but no, there's not enough time in the day to do all that we really want for districts. But feedback like this helps us to try to make sure we're on the right path no matter what. So let's talk about reviewing and debriefing from some past trainings. In February, we did a EVA procurement training, and in March, with DCR helping take lead, we hosted a meeting minutes training session. Would love to know how these trainings, how did they land? Did you find them beneficial? Did any of these trainings help change your practice? What questions might you still have? What additional support is needed? What takeaways from these two do we want to talk about before we start thinking about where we need to head in terms of future training?
Kendall, as a heads up, this is for I don't put my camera on, it's not working for whatever reason. Blair Gordon, for those who can't see me. We do have a follow-up meeting minutes training. It will be announced very, very shortly, but we have secured the FOIA Council and the OAG to come speak to districts, also regarding some of the further requirements for meeting minutes from that standpoint as public bodies. So it'll focus on the FOIA requirements of meeting minutes, and it will once again cover the topic of closed session guidelines, how to properly document going in and out of closed session, what can be discussed during closed session, and then a few kind of like DCR specific topics on how to document like BMP and RMP approvals, and a few little quirks that we like to see. So that's what that, it's about an hour and a half long training. It will also, it's not a required training, but it will be recorded and made available for everybody. So as soon as I have that date set in stone, I will get that shot out, all district.
Thank you, Blair. I know we talked about that last week, and that was a really good follow-up from the last meeting minute session, because so much of the questions overlapped with FOIA type topics. So ensuring we provide some clarity to districts. Thank you.
Yeah, Kendall, it's Keith. And that was the other thing I was going to say is that, I think the meeting minutes session was a good session, but it didn't include some of that topic. And, there's different between government and private industry. And I think so many times our speakers don't understand that we are government. It's just like the state association. You all aren't government. Y'all don't have to play by the same set of rules that we do. So it's just those nuances of we're different, although we are part of the association. So I think it's important that our speakers, whether it be through admin ops, water cooler chats, or state association trainings, whatever, that they understand we are government and that there are certain things we can't do because we're not private industry and certain things we have to do because we are a government entity. And just what those rules, what some of those rules are, procedures. And I mean, this isn't the first time. I mean, in my career, a lot of times our presenters don't understand we are a government entity and we have to focus, we have to play by those sets of rules. So, yeah, it was a good presentation, but a lot of things, it's like, how does that work? And the scary thought is for the new district employees across the state, they don't often realize that, oh, well, while the presenter said this, that's not applicable to us. We have to play by a different set of rules. So I guess I just think about that, and even having a discussion with Maddie, our new staff member that came on in January. It's like, oh yeah, she made comment that she has a good institutional base here, where you take some districts don't have that institutional base to correct misinformation that was provided in a training session.
No, I think that's fair. I certainly understand it. I do think that's why some of the follow-up on FOIA and all is going to happen. And you're right, districts are a unique audience, and we certainly try hard sometimes to ensure our speaker understands and knows our audience. And sometimes that also takes time. It's partly why we hope Gallagher is starting to understand and work with multiple districts and give you at least an HR experience, that they recognize your government entity status. The same could be said. I have met now twice with a speaker on grant writing and resource development at our June 6th training, specifically because I want to do my best to ensure that she recognizes the uniqueness of districts heading into that training session. So a little bit of grace, but certainly one that we will continue to work on. Understood, Keith.
Kendall, this is Susie.
Yeah.
I know for me, I really enjoyed the minutes training. I definitely made changes to mine as far as like the comments from staff and partner agencies. I used to record a good bit of that. And so now just being able to say report distributed prior to the meeting, it took my minutes from 5 pages to 3. So that was a huge help.
Do you want me to? I'll share them. I have your minutes. Let's see if I can pull them up. If you want to talk to me, I guess, since a lot of y'all send me your minutes. Do you want to talk about maybe what changed in yours?
Just down, if you go down to like the second page, just like for partner reports and staff reports, the staff get an opportunity to talk during the meeting to kind of elaborate on anything that, happened since their report or something they wanted to highlight. And I used to just kind of make notes about that. And then I would make a lot of notes when it came to partner reports. And I just started doing now just reports distributed. So it really cut down a lot of stuff that was in my minutes.
I see. So you used to have summaries of the conversation.
Summaries of the conversations. And realistically, it's better to be able to say report distributed because then it's exactly what they're trying to convey in their words. So yeah, that was a help for me.
Susie?
I think that is a really nice practice to be able to say, written report attached or written report distributed, things like that. Like that is definitely really, really helpful and cuts down on what you have to record in the minutes. But do keep in mind that you need to, when somebody requests a copy of your minutes or when you're posting those minutes online, I think you need to make sure that those reports that were given to you in writing, are actually attached. If it says report attached, like you need to actually attach the report too. That's one of those steps we see kind of constantly missing.
That's fair. You're right. Those reports
Okay.
need to make sure they are part of the official minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say that the board packet is a public foyable document. So that was one of the comments that I had when I was looking at when they did the presentation, just about the fact of that board packet that you send to your directors is a public foyable document and really needs to be retained in perpetuity, just like your minutes.
Others?
Kendall, this is Siobhan. One thing that we took away from the minutes training was just the clear statement that the minutes are draft minutes until approved. So now we have the word draft on what we put into the board packet, and then what I then have and I'll go ahead and print up a copy that doesn't say draft. And as long as nothing is edited or changed, then we have the one that doesn't say draft. That's what the director or chairman signs. And then of course that's what we scan and send to our CDC. So in the board packet, it says draft, but what we have him sign and scan does not say draft. That's the actual minutes.
Well, that's a good clarification point. You're right. That was a big takeaway. Thank you, Siobhan. Other questions that you might still have that we need to resolve from procurement or meeting minutes, training? We'll certainly work with Blair and ensure that once that date is final for the follow-up with the FOIA and the OAG regarding minutes, that you're aware and able to attend that one on Zoom. So let's share my screen again. Let's talk, right? So we talked a little bit about some of the trainings we're offering in June, some of the virtual ones we've offered to date. Let's talk about some future training needs and support requests. And this really feeds into the discussion to follow based on your plan of work. The committee annually pulls together a plan of work of which the association's quarterly board reviews, provides feedback, input, approves or not. We would be looking that they would want a plan of work draft by the 2025 June quarterly board meeting, which happens virtually on June 12th. So we would hope today we can start that conversation about what your plan of work should look like. Maybe what trainings and support we can really write down towards goals that we meet as a committee. Before we do that, let's talk about some of those future training needs. The first bullet here is one that I've heard from a number of you. Our leadership has recommended it. I wanted some input and suggestions. I put two here that might be of interest to the group, and we wanted to have some feedback. The first being, many of you know that the grant agreement deliverables have been proposed for change. The Soil and Water Board has reviewed them. They will vote on them at their next meeting in May. This link here in the agenda takes you back to that box folder shared drive with all of the materials from the Soil and Water Board meeting of your grant agreement deliverables, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and notice. But there are items that are removed from the proposal, including your FOIA officer, your FOIA officer, your annual plan, your strategic plan, some of the things that are just really good business practices, as well as laws where we have learned DCR has said they don't necessarily are the right entity to police you on them, but that you are still accountable to be a FOIA officer and ensure you're following COIA and procurement laws. And there's language in the grant agreement itself that's not a deliverable that talks about generally those state federal laws that you need to comply with. So keeping that in mind, it is still referenced in the grant agreement, but it is not a deliverable. The leadership team and some of you have come to me and talked about This group helping drive the development of a checklist. I don't know what you want to call it per se, but some type of list that would go out this summer to districts to say, your grant agreement might not cover 100% of everything, but here is a starting point for you to ensure that you are hitting laws that are frequent flyer ones that we need to make sure of, or good business practices. So I would imagine it would include all the things that were removed from the grant agreement, in addition to other things. For example, I referenced the procurement law. That wasn't one that was in your grant agreement deliverables. That changed July 1, but especially for districts that maybe have some staff transitions, if you were coming in, would you know that I have records management rules that I should be following? Did I realize that I have FOIA responsibilities? Did I know that procurement mattered? Should I have put an annual plan of work or strategic plan on my radar? It would be a good starting place that you would hopefully look at this checklist side by side with grant agreement deliverables as really just a business plan. Is there desire for us to work on something like that? And any interest in wanting to brainstorm what that would look like to benefit you the most, if so?
Yeah, I'll chime in on that. There's got to be a checklist, best business practices, some kind of guidance document for new employees. It's hard enough for those veterans of us to keep up with the changes in laws and regulations and policies, especially when we do our own benefits administration, of what's required. So it's got to be done. There is no official training, for administrative staff. There's no certification for administrators like there is with conservation planning for our technical employees, or getting your engineering job approval authority for technical employees. It's kind of well, if your previous administrator didn't teach you how to do that, you don't know. And what slipped through the cracks? And I think that's where I know we're developing standard operating procedures, SOPs. Area 3 managers, we're working on kind of starting to share some SOPs. It's got to be a checklist somewhere of best business practices and things, and not all of them are going to be applicable to every district. That's the other thing about it, but at least it gives us a shopping list to go through and say what's applicable to Monacan. We check it off, and then the new incoming person has at least a starting point to go with.
Well, I get a shopping list. That's probably a good analogy for it too. And I'm only going to be able to create something as comprehensive as you need with your input and maybe a smaller group of this coming together to help us really draft it. You might recall we have a personnel management manual, we had an operating manual. Those have been living documents on our website that we try to take a eyeball to and update where possible, but this is going to be the same type of resource guide. We're going to only think about things like the state treasury if you are joining that small committee and making sure it gets on that list, because that's not something that the association has to do. So district input is going to be really valuable to ensuring that the checklist is most valuable to districts statewide. Okay. Any comments about grant deliverable changes, this type of resource idea?
Kendall, this is Megan. I thank you for following up on this idea and thought. I do love it. I am a checklist person, and I'm afraid that without a piece of paper to say, oh yeah, and don't forget, these are the 10 things you have to do per code. They don't, DCR is not checking behind you, but somebody else might at some day, or to keep yourself out of trouble, these are the 10 things you have to do. So I love the idea of best business practices, but I really like the idea of having this section of these are best business practices pick from the menu, but these are the 15 things you got to do per code. Like some of the things you've already mentioned, Koya and FOIA, and posting of electronic or acceptance of electronic whatever for procurement. Like these things are non-negotiable.
No, I think that's important. Thank you, Megan. You're right. I've kind of talked about it as like a business practice spreadsheet, but as we pull together the checklist, it's almost you're delineating the sections to ensure that folks realize here's an overview of some of the laws that are most critical you need to be ensuring you meet versus here are the things that will help you in terms of your local advocacy and outreach, right? Your annual plan of work is a great one that is an important business practice that I would hope your district would turn around and showcase with community members and stakeholders. But if you I don't really want to say this out loud. If you didn't do it, like who's gonna slap you on the hand? It's not a grant agreement deliverable. The reality is, I really hope you continue to still do it because it is a great business practice and outreach material, advocacy piece. It is a way for you to build relationships with your own local board of supervisors, et cetera. So we can make the case for why they are all strong reasons to be done, but separating them into different categories, we can certainly do. I heard Megan and Keith being willing to offer me some feedback as we start developing this checklist. Do all districts provide a checklist to district? I see your categories as required, non-negotiable, best business, certainly. But do your CDCs provide you a checklist? Like I know Lord Fairfax has a great one on the back of their agendas. I don't know if I just called out Lord Fairfax. Sorry, guys. But Allison and folks have shared with me a grade on the back of their agenda where they check it off as they ensure it is completed. And it is a great visual for their board members to know when something has been completed that was a grant deliverable. So likely that's probably being put. So yes, Debbie has a checklist she provides. Thanks, Blair. All CDCs keep a checklist. That's something certainly we'll bring DCR to the table as we develop this resource and make sure that we are using that as a starting point. But my hope is that this would be even more comprehensive than perhaps what that checklist is.
Yeah, the CDC checklist is just of grant deliverables. It doesn't include a lot of the other stuff like this. I think the checklist we're talking about developing here is a kind of a list of the things that are not grant deliverables, but the districts are still certainly required to continue.
Thanks, Blair. I think it's a good starting point and certainly a great reference. Thanks for pointing it out to us.
And it kind of goes in conjunction with another checklist I've been piecemealing together over the last few months with like who to contact when you have a new employee at DCR, like who to contact when you need to get them certified for conservation planning, or you need to get them in the tracking module. Things like that is kind of a list of who to contact and what forms to fill out to accomplish getting your new employees also like into all of our systems.
If you have a checklist and you're willing to share it, right? Certainly I'm going to go to Blair and be like, what's the checklist that a CDC uses that we can use as a starting off point? But if there's something the district uses, please pass that on our way as a starting point for this larger document too.
Yeah. Sharon just asked if everyone uses the end of year questionnaire. And that actually is you'll see that come out to all the districts. They'll get it from your CDC in early May. So that's also a good, like, once you get it, stop and look through it and make sure you can kind of answer yes to all of those questions. And if you can't, you still have your May and June board meetings to kind of make up for those deficiencies. So that questionnaire should be coming out in early May from your CDC. We're finalizing it now.
I'm going to ask if you have interest in helping as we pull this together to drop your name in the chat box or speak up now. I will certainly put out an email to the group of our admin listserv if there are folks we've missed today, but certainly do need some folks to step up to ensure that we can pull together a draft and hopefully, thank you, Susie, right? Keep it coming. I think we can get a really good small group together for this. I think we could even have something to present as we head into our early summer meetings as a committee, because I don't want to put words in folks' mouth, but I think the timing of this would help as we enter the new fiscal year since your grant deliverables are changing. So we would like to try to ensure we are not behind the 8 ball, and by summer you are getting a draft. Oh, that's Renee. Thanks. Got it.
Hey, Kendall, we also have a list of resources in the director notebook, the director handbook, whatever we're calling it nowadays. Director resource notebook. There's a list of resources in there that cites a lot of the required code for FOIA and COIA and the different trainings that are required. So that's another good starting place as we work through this committee.
Good point. And we certainly have copies of that too. So maybe the small group can get together before we pull the large group together next. I've got Blair Gordon, I've got Ann Coates, I've got Renee Davis, I've got certainly our staff. Did I miss anybody who wants to really be engaged in this? It's Amy Walker, thank you. Megan, perfect. I know that Emily just said she would find this helpful as a newer employee, but Emily, I might be copying you on this too, because I think there is value of a newer employee speaking in this committee to ensure we provide a resource. Right, you bring a really good perspective, and I hope I can pull you into some of the discussions also. Right, there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you, Mr. Price. I said I'll save the chat box. We'll go back and make sure I didn't miss anyone. I love it. There's so many of you. I know we only have a little bit of time left, so I want to talk next about briefly. Yesterday, Shannon and I met with Gallagher, a different division of their agency, to talk about some exploratory discussions to updating the 2022 district state salary and benefit study. You will recall we did that about 3 years ago. Doesn't feel like that long, but it is certainly dated enough that that salary study information isn't as relevant anymore. We had that study previously done by Terry Higgins, who was an associate director at the time in Henricopolis, certainly still plays a role with some districts. She did her hand at pulling together some survey data and ensuring we had an understanding of what benefits from insurance down to hybrid work were available at districts, as well as a salary scale, and comparing that to both our state and federal partners and other spectrums. We talked with Gallagher to kick off some initial conversations, shared all of that data from 3 years ago to doing something similar, and had told them that we wanted to come to this group and find out for sure whether or not there was interest in us upping the ante, right? This would be, I think, a different list than what we've done in the past. It would be a full-blown report through Gallagher that would be doing all the data collection, protecting that data for us, and would be entering into a contract to do a salary and benefit study for districts. If that is something of interest to districts, then our leadership team association board would start discussing the cost and timeline, but certainly I think Shannon and I understood that we could, if there was interest, pursue this summer into fall and have a virtual training session with results announced in the fall and really, or annual meeting. So it is not something that's too far off into the future, but we'd heard from a handful of you that thought this might be a beneficial step for HR efforts next. Okay. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat box just to figure out if this is something we should pursue further. Sounds like there's some interest. Is there anything that salary study or benefit study didn't capture last time, or maybe if it's too far back now for you to recall, that we just need to put out there now to say, as you're starting these initial conversations, make sure you collect X, Y, and Z. It would be that much more meaningful to our district if it includes insert answer. You go. I was hoping somebody would pick that up and fill it in for me. So Sharon, you're right. I get it. We talked a lot about how the data statewide certainly would be collected, but how they would need to look at it in an area, region basis. We started talking about all the different data sets that they could compare it to in terms of not just the state and federal partners, but region and geographic, based on number of districts covered and right how big your board is. We started trying to figure out all the data sets of points that we have, Bay or Southern Rivers. So geographic doesn't necessarily have to be area 1, area 2. It could be looking at different ways to compare regions also. Okay.
And we also talked about salary and benefits. And I think Kendall and I discussed the importance, we feel anyway, of benefits along with salary, all encompassing. Is everyone in agreement with that?
I would say so, because that's one thing I was just thinking about, was just the fact that you've also got to look at the benefits package, because that varies tremendously. You talking about health insurance and VRS retirement and other benefits that may be in there, tremendously. And because those that are working from home, they don't have daily travel expenses that an employee that has to travel to the office every day. So it's really got to be looked at as a package compensation deal, when looking at that.
Thanks, Keith.
No, that's helpful. Right. There's a lot to work out as we move down this path. Yes, benefits, relationship to NRCS salaries. We will definitely save some of this. There was even the discussion about, based on what Gallagher could pull together for us, they could create, we would not be required to use it, but they could create that salary step increase range for positions and how you could do increases. Right, here's a template document if you wanted to utilize it, you could do in terms of how to step increase people. Okay.
Our district did start using a salary scale in the last couple of years, and I think it's definitely been something pretty handy for us to use as a tool.
Cool.
We had a we had a very well thought out process adopted by the board about 3 years ago. Used it for about 2 years. The board kicked that to the side because it was too complicated, and went back to the old style grade and step scale. So one of the issues we run into is consistencies from boards to board, and that's where I think directors need some training, HR training on managing staff and benefits and stuff.
I will be putting together a list of districts, individuals, and job titles for him to look at. The only thing that I asked is I know that the directory, as soon as we go to print, things are out of date. So if you haven't gotten sent over to me any additions or deletions that you've had in your staff since the directory or since the first of the year, please let me know so I can make sure to make those changes.
That's a really good point. It's not necessarily what's going to be the end all be all, but it is a starting point for us to have a data point for Gallagher to realize the variety of job titles. So Shannon is pulling every job title from the directory so that we can then start the conversation of, okay, what continuity across districts is there in certain titles? And we spend a long time talking to them about how that district manager might actually not be the same in terms of a district manager in a different district because of the responsibilities and duties. And he even said, if you want to share job descriptions with me, we can certainly do that too. So we are right on the cusp of what this would look like. So this feedback is really important. how would we deal with more expensive cost of living areas? Like, nope, great point, Charles. All ones I think we've started trying to jot our own questions down. I think while the small committee will probably be the initial push we need to do with the group about the grant deliverable checklist piece, the next steps are us to really start working with the leadership team and board about what the cost would be, the timeline, and as we get into the weeds, once that's been signed and we move forward, would be turning back to this group because we had asked Gallagher to be open to coming to an admin ops conversation like this so that we could really be all on the same page. And he, to Keith's point at the very beginning, learn and understand exactly who our audience is so that the end result of this report is of true value. Okay. It sounds like there is
Sharon had
enough
a question.
interest. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a lot in the chat box. Sharon, did you have a question?
I was just going to say it would be very helpful to include the job descriptions that correlate at the state level. We already do that when we advertise our positions. We correlate ours directly to a state position. And for example, like if you look at an environmental specialist at the state, there's like a 1, a 2, 3, and they have very different responsibilities. So like just saying somebody's a conservation specialist, that might be a similar name throughout the state, but we might say ours is a conservation specialist, but this particular one is tied to an environmental specialist too at the state, meaning that they have maybe some managerial responsibilities. So I think in doing this, if we can correlate some of this to the state positions and also the salary steps with the state, which also takes into consideration the cost of living, like in Northern Virginia, they have a whole separate list. I think that's important. Because when we advertise it, we pretty much say, this is our position, but it's very similar to the state environmental specialist too. So, you know, if they want to get an idea of the responsibilities that they're going to have, you know, they can kind of look across the board. And we do the same thing with our locality. We also look at a similar position at our locality and say, this is comparable to such and such at Hanover County. So I think that that could be very helpful in adding that in.
Sharon, can you still hear me? That's really fantastic feedback. Thank you. Can someone give me a thumbs up? Y'all hear me now?
I'm not muted.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. I was just making sure my sound was still working, right? So this is all really helpful feedback. We have a long list of things that at the association we want to work on to help support you. I know we're getting right to the top of the hour. I don't want to monopolize too much time. What I would recommend, so I can pull it up, is for next part of discussion, we really wanted to talk about what the plan of work should be. In the agenda is a link to the plan of work that was approved by the board a year ago. Certainly it needs some updating. I would encourage and ask that could we spend some time taking over the next few weeks. I'll send this out. We'll send it with Gallagher's. We've got a lot of follow-up things that we want to make sure we send. We can start working on pulling together a small group, and that perhaps maybe in May we have a water cooler chat where I don't structure an agenda and we come and we talk about any feedback to the annual plan of work and any questions that you might want to answer and just share with your peers. Keeping in mind, some of the committee goals are probably going to remain the same, right? It is just the mission of the Admin Ops Committee, but there are some specifics that we probably want to encourage you to take a look on in the next few weeks and offer guidance of where as a committee we should go. For example, one of the, am I screen sharing this? Can you see this?
No.
Okay.
I still see the agenda.
That's thank you. Let me actually screen share. Can you see the plan of work now? Okay. It was linked in the agenda. Right. I can imagine there are some things like provide guidance on training programs, ensuring we have a voice for annual meeting planning committee, which kicks off June 12th, or serving on the Employees Association board, having at least open communications with the Employees Association so that admin ops training needs are finding a place throughout the year in different venues and formats is likely still something we need to continue to do. But for example, this one is one that we did update in the last year. It's a living document on our website. I don't know how many necessarily utilize that personnel management resource on the website. It's something we could probably encourage and communicate. But perhaps this is not necessarily an update to the personnel management binder. Maybe this, based on conversation today, is a development and rollout of a shopping list, resource checklist that we talked about because of grant deliverable changes. And some of the strategies and goals would be really pulling together that smaller committee group and rolling it out and finalizing over the summer so that it coincides with grant agreement deliverables coming forward. I can certainly take some of the conversation points we've had today about, there is interest in a salary study, there is interest in that checklist, and fold it into here and send you some of the comments and discussion, because while you didn't necessarily realize it, the entire hour you've been talking about where you want to go as a committee, and that needs to be folded into the plan of work. So I can certainly make those track changes and send out as a follow-up to the call today. Here's what we talked about, where we want to head. What other changes would you like to see? And we could maybe reconvene again in a month ahead of June 12th board meeting to finalize any needs for the plan of work. People okay with that? Okay. One of the items then I don't want to put words in folks' mouths. So if you want to stop and talk further about plan of work, or if there's something we haven't talked about that you think is a future training or support need that we need to address, put it out there now, or contact Shannon and I, so that as we take today's conversation and draft it into track changes, we incorporate as much as possible into that first draft. Let us know. Tell us right now. Anything we haven't captured that you'd like to make sure gets included? Right, and that's not to say some of the side feedback that I saw submitted in the Zoom training registration. I appreciated some of you who put in the comments at least some ideas for future training needs too, and how we can find a place for them in this plan of work, as well as the other training efforts that we'll be doing throughout the year. We'll certainly not forget those. For example, I know Sharon, you had mentioned one with me this morning about the idea of needing to ensure that even as an admin ops committee, we need to be formalizing trainings for directors, especially around things like IT security and scams. Did I summarize that well?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we're looking at.
Okay. Other topics, kind of like that feedback Sharon sent, that you want to make sure is on the radar and list now? Anyone? Okay. One of your current plan of work goals is that you would plan quarterly meetings, you would hold regular open topic virtual water cooler chats. Are we okay to say then, and within the month, we do a water cooler chat, and one of the topics we would come to that water cooler and ask is, let's look at the plan of work revisions and then discuss anything else that folks had burning questions and wanted to talk to peers about. We could do that in May. And
That
then,
sounds good.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And then we could work to set a schedule for a June, July meeting. We could look to ensure there's training at Graves Mountain in August. We could set a date for, right, if you're talking about quarterly meetings, you'd be looking at another one in the September, October timeframe, and then at annual meeting December, we would hopefully do one of the ideas that has been asked to go before the planning committee is to do some type of committee meeting session, round topic tables or breakfast sessions around committee topics. So we could potentially have an actual in-person meeting in December too. So in addition to a lot of homework that I made sure to take notes about and where we can move forward to support you, wanted to define our water cooler chat in May, as well as set up your plan of work and come to that meeting with at least some dates for summer, fall meetings. Okay. I would be realistic if I will certainly pull out the directory and make sure that we are trying to conflict with as few district board meetings as possible. But the reality is it would be after Envirothon, right? Between golf tournament and Envirothon and a number of things on our internal calendar. Plus also wanting to draft, update, and send it to you so you have a little bit of time to digest it and make any comments. I will send out an email by the end of the week, and perhaps we can nail down a time between May 20th and the end of the month in May to reconvene.
Subcommittee meeting.
Sounds good. All right, Renee, thank you. I think this is a really helpful feedback. I know there are some Employees Association members on the call. I know Shannon is joining also, and they're talking this afternoon about Graves Mountain training needs. So certainly that cost share file review training can be a topic. Perhaps Shannon, if someone on the line isn't also joining that, you can make sure is heard.
I would also like to add, like Kendall said, that meeting to discuss Graves training is today. So if anyone has any ideas, you can either drop them in the chat now or please email them to me. Any trainings you would like to see at Graves, any admin trainings. And also, you know, we had discussed potentially maybe bringing Charlotte. So if there are specific HR training needs, if you could please let me know so I can go to that meeting today with at least some options or some ideas.
Any last comments? Issues we haven't talked about you want to make sure we address before we wrap up today? A lot of good chat box feedback. I appreciate it. I'm glad we're saving it. I need to go back and digest it all. I hope for the next meeting you will actually come off of mute and help me too. Right. I don't want our conversation to end today in terms of you providing input to training and plan of work and just general guidance on how we can better support you. So our door is always open. My cell phone is honestly the best place to connect with me, but we're here to serve you, and we're trying and recognize there are ways to improve. So help us do that.
Well, thanks for all that you all do. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Linda, for joining. And John, absolutely. I think you have pointed out a really good training piece that while there's a lot of admin ops topics, there are certainly areas for directors to understand their responsibilities as board members and what that really entails. So you're thinking then, as I develop the plan of work, we'll make sure we capture both the staff training needs that we can help, but how that also feeds into some director training needs. Guys, thank you so much. We'll be in touch, and I look forward to connecting with you at the end of May. We'll keep this conversation moving and more regularly.
Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.